Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today is August 19th, it's Sunday, and we went boating yesterday. That's kind of why my hair is like this. But today is my study day, like my full weekend study day, and I thought it would be fun to show you guys how I'm studying. So I'm going to bring you along, show you exactly what I'm doing, kind of walk you through it. I did just do a video on like my study process, but I know for me personally, I like to see the actual doings, if that makes sense. So I thought it would be good to show you guys. Right now I'm finishing up chapter 1 of Audit, and it's going really well so far. I think a lot of the changes that I've made to not only like my notes, but also just like the way, my mentality about it. You know, I'm focusing more on really learning the material and not necessarily getting through it, if that makes sense. So all of those things have really helped, and it seems like I'm doing a lot better on the multiple choice. It seems like it's clicking a little bit more, but today I need to finish up 2 different modules, the last 2. They should be pretty short, and then I need to do the simulations. I would love to go back through my notes and kind of review a little bit. I'll probably do that before I do the simulations, but the nice thing is I'm kind of free to do this. It's about 8 o'clock right now. I'm free to do this until around 5, so I have lots of time today to do it, which is really nice. So I just thought it would be fun to show you guys how I'm studying, let you guys know some tips and tricks throughout the day, and I really hope you guys like this type of video. I know a lot of people like to know all about the CPA and how I'm studying and stuff like that, so I figured it'd be a good day to show you guys. So let's go ahead and get into Dunkin' Donuts. That's like my go-to spot nowadays to study on the weekends, or even in the mornings on the weekends. So yeah, I'm gonna get my coffee, I'm gonna start studying, and I'm gonna bring you guys along with me. So the first thing I do when I begin studying a new module is I go through the lecture. And I get a lot of questions about this, whether I read or watch the lecture. I personally, in the past, have really been into reading the chapter beforehand and using that as like my main basis for learning. But with the CPA, and especially with Becker, it seems like a lot of the information that is useful, or little tips and tricks, really you find all of that out in the lecture. And so what I usually do is I start the lecture and just take notes like they tell you to do in your book. With those notes, I will then kind of condense the information in the book into my notes. And so that really seems to help. So I'm just showing you here. I usually use like a red or green pen and just write down exactly what they tell you to write down. Usually there are like exam tricks, so they'll say this is heavily tested on the exam, or this is a phrase that will help you remember what this topic is about and what the qualifications are, or things like that. So I personally really enjoy that. But of course, you could definitely read the book. And I think there is also an option for like the notes version within the Becker software to just get the details and all of that. Everything they're telling you to highlight or write down, they have already prepared for you. So you don't really have to write it down. But for me personally, again, I learn from writing notes down. And so I want to do that in the textbook, as well as my own personal notes to go back and review. So here I'm just showing you an example of some of the notes and things they tell you to either write down or underline. It seems like usually they point out what is most important, and especially things that you're going to be tested in the multiple choice or in the simulation. So I always make sure to write down what they're telling me. And this is just showing you what it looks like on the screen. They do exactly what they tell you to do. So after I do that and I write down everything they tell me to do, I work on the skills practice. And that's what this is that I'm scrolling through. So usually it starts off with a couple mini lectures just telling you the most important information that they found in the chapter. And then at the very bottom, there's a little practice problem that you can work on. For me, this is usually the point where I take my notes in my notebook, mostly because they cover the most important and most tested material here. And so I go through, watch these, take notes as I'm going through, and then after I'm done with this, I usually take more detailed notes of topics that they didn't necessarily cover in the little skills practice video, but I know will be important that they had me highlight before. So here I'm just showing you some of my notes. This time around, I have been way more organized with them. I think the lined paper instead of the dot grid paper has made a huge difference. I've also been using my Erin Condren dual tip markers, which have been really instrumental in making my notes clean and letting the most important things pop out. So I'm just showing you how I've made little graphs and really highlighted information. Here, I just write down everything that I think is important. And this might be a little overkill, but what I think is going to be the best for me is to have everything I think is important in a couple pages rather than going through 100 pages of textbook. So you can see I just use my black pen mostly, and then I use the dual tip markers just to highlight anything that I think is important. I really enjoy the Erin Condren dual tip markers for this. It's been really awesome. I've also used some of the stickers in the back, if you just saw there, just to highlight some main things. So just going to keep going with my notes. And then once I'm done with my notes, I move on to the questions, which you see here. This time around, the questions have been so much easier. And I don't know if it's just because of audit, because it's not as hard of material, or if it's just because of the things that I've kind of implemented this time around. I think it's probably just the things that I've implemented because I've been trying to focus more on actually learning instead of just rushing through and getting, 100% of that chapter done, if that makes sense. So once I have my notes down, I start the problems. And this time around, like I said, I've been doing a lot better, usually between like high 80s, low 90s, which is perfect because in FAR, I definitely did not do as well. So I'm just going to answer a few questions, show you guys kind of what it looks like if you're new to Becker, and we'll just move right along. All right, guys, so I'm taking a little break from studying. I've been going probably, I think I said 8 is when I started. It's 11:30 right now, so I am seriously so sick of studying. These days are like the best and the worst at the same time. I feel like it's nice when I have a lot of time to work on studying, but working on it like for hours at a time is just kind of exhausting, and my brain towards the end just doesn't work anymore. So anyway, what I usually do is halfway through the day, around lunchtime, I'll go and just walk around a store or something. Today I think I'm gonna go to Target because I want to get a binder and some like dividers and stuff so that I can put all of my printed out simulations. So I will show you guys the like simulation part. That's like my next part. I finished all the material, so now all I have to do is kind of review my notes and then do the simulation. So something that I'm doing differently this time from what I did with FAR is I'm planning on really reviewing the material before I do the simulations, taking the simulations extremely serious, and trying to somehow print all the simulations and keep them in a binder so that I can review those as well as my notes when I'm studying or reviewing. The issue with simulations is that there's so many pieces and you really need to get an idea of how to do it on the screen because you don't have papers that you can flip through. You legit need to like click through all the little attachments and do that on the screen. But I think it would be good just to review and to get an idea of what the simulations would be like. I definitely plan on going back this time around and like actually redoing the simulations in the Becker software, but I just want to have them available. Something that I did with my insurance certification that I did a couple years back was I actually printed out all of the quizzes and all of the practice tests, and I would go through those tests were really easy compared to the CPA, definitely not comparable at all. But what I would do is before the exam, I would basically just review all of those. And it was easy to do that because I had them all printed out. So that's kind of my thought about the simulations, that it could be similar. That way I could just do it whenever I can, whenever I have time, and I don't necessarily need the a computer to do that or internet access. So anyway, that's what I'm gonna do. But I figured I'd be honest with you guys, it is so tough these days. Like, I really just want to go home and like snuggle up on the couch with Macy, but I know that I really need to like review all of the stuff again and do the simulation and really take my time with it. So anyway, I'm gonna head to Target, look for like a binder and some dividers. It doesn't have to be fancy, I just really need something to just put all of the simulations in. Hopefully I can figure out how to print it. And then I'll probably get lunch and then go to the library and work on reviewing and my simulations. It's like 11:30 right now, so hopefully I'm done by like 2 or 3. That way I can kind of relax a little bit while Macy's still napping. But I'm gonna bring you guys along with me with the simulation part. I just thought I'd give you an update. I am going to like do like a voiceover for the parts that you probably already saw, just because I was in Dunkin' Donuts and they have the music blasting, which normally does not bother me because I have headphones in anyway and I kind of like the music, but I felt like it would be really annoying for me to like be talking and have the music going at the same time, if that makes sense. So anyway, with all that being said, I am going to go walk around, relax a little bit, then get back into studying, and I'll show you guys some of the simulations and I'll show you like my whole strategy for those. Alright guys, so I'm back at my house now. I'm reviewing all the material and then I'm gonna work on the simulations. My plan was to go to the library, but apparently the library is closed during the summer, which I had no idea about, but it's okay. I could always print the simulations later. But my plan is to go through my notebook. There's quite a bit of pages here, which we'll kind of see how it works taking as much notes as I've been. It seems like it helps with the multiple choice, but we'll kind of see how it goes because it does definitely slow me down. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 pages for one chapter, which is a lot, but if you think about it, the chapters are 100 pages. So if I got all the important information in 12 pages, and that's like with lots of spacing and stuff, I think that's pretty good. So anyway, I'm gonna go through my notes, review, and then work on the simulation. I don't think the simulations will take that long. I took a brief look at them and they look like they're going to be somewhat simple, but you never know until you get to it and then, you know, you'll get an idea. So anyway, I'm just going to like kind of show you a little bit of what I'm doing and then I'll check in with you guys afterwards and let you know how it went. So here I'm just going through all of my notes and I'm making a point this time to go through all of the material that I learned prior to doing the simulations just so that I feel a little bit more confident going into them. It seems like simulations are usually harder for me, and I think it's just because usually it's representing a lot of the information kind of combined. So I'm just going through. One thing that I did not do with FAR is I did not review my notes after actually taking them. So walking through all of this has really opened my mind up to the fact that like I need to do that going forward. So I'm going to try and make that part of my weekend routine after I'm done with the chapter to go back and not only work on multiple choice questions, but also look at my notes, because if you keep looking at it, you'll become more familiar with it. You'll kind of know where certain topics are covered. You'll kind of recognize it on the page. And so I think that's going to be crucial for when I go back to actually review for the actual audit exam. So here I'm just kind of flipping through, getting an idea of what I'm going to have to like remember for this chapter. And I think again, the markers and the color coordinating is really going to make it easier to pinpoint all of the important information on each page. Alright guys, so I went through all of my notes and now I'm going to start working on my simulations. So I'll show you guys the beginning screen and then I'll kind of update you guys as I'm doing it. It always says like it's gonna take a certain amount of minutes. I feel like this is always really overestimated. So here's an example of one of them and there's 6, but when I was going through it looked like some of them were just not that bad. So think the last two are like ones you have to look up or something. So anyway, I'm gonna work on this now, and I will update you guys and let you know how it went and all of that when I'm done. Okay, so I'm all done with my simulations. It went really well. One thing that I did is I added little bookmarks in my notebook for areas that I did have simulations on, just so I can go back and like when I'm reviewing I could look at those. So I'll show you what I did. I used these Erin Condren little sticky note bookmark types things, and I just wrote sim on the little tab so it pokes out, and then just wrote what each thing was about, and I put it next to the area that it goes with. So I did that for a couple of them, and then there were a bunch of ones where you had to look up the literature, so I am not putting those in my notes, but I'll definitely print all those out and try and get an idea. So overall, today has been an exhausting day, but I think it's going to be good the way that I've been setting up. So I hope you enjoyed this little study with me. If you guys have any questions about my study plan or anything like that, leave them down below and I will try and get back to you guys as soon as possible. And thank you guys so much for watching. Bye guys.